So I'd used computers at university and at work for some years, but I'd never owned a computer. The thought of owning a computer was a very strange one at the time. But the early days of home computing was just beginning. And the first opportunity I had was when a local company to Cambridge, Acorn, produced a machine they called the Acorn Atom. They went on later to produce the BBC Micro, which became much better known, and the Acorn Atom was, in a sense, an early prototype before the BBC Micro. This came available in 1980, and you could get it in one of two forms. You could, for £170, you could get a ready-built one, looking like this one, keyboard built into it, things on the back for connecting a few devices, which we'll come on to in a minute. But for only £120, and £50 was a lot of money in those days, you could get it in kit form and build it yourself. So you had a motherboard and chips that had to be soldered onto it and connections that had to be made. So I put in an order very early on for a kit, and like a lot of the companies for the time, they were a bit slow in producing things. They said it would be ready by so-and-so date, and that date came and went, and they still weren't shipping them. And because I lived in Cambridge, I was able to, well, initially I rang the office every once a week and said, when's my kit going to be ready? And then I started going in there. They had an office above Marks and Spencer's on Market Hill. And so they kept saying next week, and until one time I went in and Chris Curry, I think, said, got fed up, and they'd got all the bits. They hadn't got the boxes properly printed, I don't think. So he disappeared into the back room and came out with what I think was probably the first Acorn Atom to leave the factory, the office there, where they were being put together. And so I took it home, and I built it, and it didn't work, and I found a loose connection on the very first connection where the power goes in at the back, soldered that, and it sprang to life. And so I started using it, and to use it you had to plug it into an ordinary television. Gave a very poor resolution screen, black and white screen, a black and white television. It had no disk drive or anything, so you recorded onto cassette tape using an ordinary cassette tape recorder, Philips cassettes. And so you plugged that in the back, and you told it to save the information onto the thing, and it warbled sort of noises while it wrote it to the tape. And then if you were lucky, next day you could put the tape in, press play, and it would come back in as a program. If you weren't lucky, it didn't. And I started writing a few programs. I wrote a maze following game and things, and I did some church bell ringing programs, bell ringing methods, which was one of my hobbies still at that time. And I had it for about 2 years, and I sold it to the vicar, actually, who wanted to learn about computers. And it was a good time to sell, because about 6 months later Acorn came out with the BBC Micro, and which was a much better machine, and so the resale price of an Acorn Atom crashed at that time. But I actually sold it for more than I bought it for, because I bought it as a kit and sold it as a made machine.